before you give up on love, there's something most people never realize. It doesn't always end with a fight or a clear reason. Sometimes you just wake up one day and it feels like something is missing, and you start thinking, maybe the love is gone, and what you're about to hear might change the way you see your relationship. There's a couple sitting across from each other at a cafe. A year ago, this same table held hours of conversation, laughter that felt effortless, silences that felt meaningful, not empty. Today they're both on their phones. Nothing is wrong exactly. No visible conflict. No tension in the air. Just less. Less curiosity. Less intensity. Less of whatever once made this feel alive. And neither of them can quite explain why. This is the strange contradiction of human relationships. At the beginning, we crave closeness. We move toward each other with urgency, fascination, even obsession. But over time, the very closeness we once desired begins to dull the intensity we were chasing. We want stability, but we also want excitement. We want to feel safe, but we also want to feel something new. And often, we don't realize those desires quietly work against each other. Here's the part that's difficult to accept. Love doesn't always fade because something is broken. Sometimes, it fades because nothing is. Because the relationship became stable, predictable, secure, and while that sounds like success to the human brain, it can feel like something is missing. Not because the love is gone, but because the intensity has changed. Psychologists describe this process through something called hedonic adaptation. It's a simple idea, but it explains a lot. Humans are remarkably good at getting used to things, new experiences, whether it's a new phone, a new environment, or a new relationship, create a surge of emotional intensity. But over time, that intensity naturally decreases, not because the experience became worse, but because it became familiar. In the context of relationships, this shift is often misunderstood. Early love is driven by novelty, uncertainty, and reward. The brain releases chemicals like dopamine, creating excitement and anticipation. But as the relationship stabilizes, the brain transitions from dopamine-driven passion to oxytocin-driven attachment, from excitement to comfort. And while comfort is deeper and more sustainable, it doesn't always feel as intense. In fact, research in relationship psychology consistently shows this pattern. Studies on long-term couples suggest that passionate love marked by high emotional intensity naturally declines over time, but something else tends to replace it: companionate love, a quieter form of connection defined by trust, emotional safety, and long-term bonding. The problem is not that this shift happens. The problem is that most people are never taught to recognize it. So when the emotional high fades, they interpret it as emotional loss. There's something deeply human about this misunderstanding. We often confuse change with ending. We expect meaningful things to feel the same forever, as if consistency in feeling is proof of authenticity. But almost nothing in human experience works that way. Even the most profound emotions evolve. What begins as intensity often transforms into depth. What begins as excitement often becomes presence. But depth is quieter than intensity, and presence is harder to notice than excitement. So we assume something has disappeared, when in reality it has simply changed form. This misunderstanding has subtle but significant consequences. It shapes how people evaluate their relationships. It creates doubt where there may be no real problem. People begin to question, am I still in love? Did I choose the wrong person? Why doesn't it feel the same anymore? And sometimes, in search of that original feeling, they start looking for novelty elsewhere, not necessarily because they want to leave, but because they want to feel again what they once felt. In a culture that constantly emphasizes passion, intensity, and instant emotional highs, this becomes even more pronounced. Movies end at the peak of romance. Stories focus on beginnings, not continuations. We are taught how love starts, but rarely how it evolves. And without that understanding, many people walk away from relationships that are not failing, just transforming. There's also something else happening beneath the surface. Familiarity, while comforting, reduces uncertainty. And uncertainty plays a powerful role in attraction. At the beginning of a relationship, You are constantly discovering the other person. Every conversation reveals something new. Every moment carries a sense of unpredictability. But over time, you begin to know them, their habits, their reactions, their patterns, and while that knowledge builds trust, it also reduces the sense of discovery. The brain, which is wired to notice novelty, starts paying less attention, not because the person became less meaningful, but because they became more familiar. And familiarity, paradoxically, can feel like emotional distance, even when the connection is still there. So maybe the question isn't, why does love fade? Maybe the better question is, what does love become when it's no longer new? Because love, in its early form, is loud. It demands attention. It feels undeniable. But in its later form, it becomes quieter. It shows up in small, almost invisible ways: in consistency, in presence, in choosing the same person again and again without the noise. And the truth is, many people don't lose love. They lose their ability to recognize it once it stops looking the way it did in the beginning. Because sometimes, what feels like the fading of love is actually the moment it stops being an emotion and starts becoming a decision.